Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshum Amritamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Okay. So we're on the 14th chapter, the modes of material nature. I believe we're on text 11. So we'll start with text number 1 whenever things get settled. Thank you. Gracias. Okay. Start with text 1.
14.1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again, I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection."
14.2. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution.
That was 2.
That was 2. Can you read 3? 14.
Yep. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata.
Yes, please.
It should be, text 4, it should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father.
Text 5. Material nature consists of 3 modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes.
O sinless one, the mode of goodness being purer than others is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge.
7. The mode of passion.
Oh, yeah. Okay. O sinless one, the mode of goodness being purer than others is illuminating, and it frees one from sinful reactions, all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge.
7. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti. And because of this, the embodied living entity is bound by material fruits of action.
Text 8. O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul.
14.9. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness. Passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness. Okay.
Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance, O son of Bharata. Sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times, ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy.
So we'll do the Sanskrit on text 11. Okay. Sarva dvareshu dehismin prakasha upajayate Jnanam yada tada vidyam Viridam sattvam ityuta Sarva dureshu dehesmin Prakasha upajayate Jnanam yada tada vidyad Vividam sattvam ityuta Sarva dareshu dehesmin Prakasha upajayate Jnanam yada tada vidyad Vividam sattva ityuta
Sarvadvareshu dehesmin.
Sarvadareshu dehesmin
Prakasha upajayate.
Prakasha upajayate
Jnanam yada tadvidyad.
Jnanam yada tada vidyad
Vivirdam sattvam ityuta.
Vivirdam sattvam ityuta
Sarvam Davarashu Desmin,
Sarvadareshu dehesmin
Prakasha Upajayate,
Rakasha upajayate
Yanam Yada Tada Vidya,
Jnanam yada tada vidyad
Vivridam Sarvamiti Uta,
Vividam sattva ityuta
Sarvadvarishu dehesmin
Sarvadareshu dehesmin
Prakasha upajayate
Prakasha upajayate
Yanam yada tada vidya
Jnanam yada tada vidyad
Vivridam sattvam ityuta
Viridam sattvam ityuta. Okay, so we'll do word for word. Victoria, do you mind doing word for word?
Sure. For the Darishu
Yeah.
and all the gates.
In all the gates.
Yasmin,
Dehe Yasmin,
in his body.
in his body. Prakasha,
The quality of illumination.
the quality of illumination.
Upajayate.
Upajayate, develops.
Jnanam.
Jnanam,
Knowledge.
knowledge.
Yada.
Yada,
When.
when.
Tada.
Tada,
At that time.
at that time.
Vidyat.
Vidyat,
No.
no.
Viridam.
Viridam,
Increased.
increase.
Sattvam.
Sattvam,
The mode of goodness.
the mode of goodness. Ityuta.
That's what it says.
You mind doing translation?
The manifestation of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge.
What did you see? First two sentences?
Purport?
Yes, please.
There are 9 gates in the body, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, the mouth, the genital, and the anus. In every gate, when the symptoms of goodness is illuminated, it should be understood that one has developed the mode of goodness.
In the mode of goodness, one can see things in the right position, one can hear things in the right position, and one can taste things in the right position. One becomes cleansed inside and outside.
In every gate, there is development of the symptoms of happiness, and that is the position of goodness. And then I think because there's the next two are synopsis, we'll just read 2 more verses. I'll read the translation, and then Max, if you want to read the 2 sentences in the next one. So, O chief, this is text 12. O chief of the Bharatas, When there's an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hanker develop.
Purport. One in the mode of passion is never satisfied with the position he already has acquired. He hankers to increase his position. If he wants to construct a residential house, he tries his best to have a palatial house, as if he would be able to reside in that house eternally.
And he develops a great hankering for sense gratification. There is no end to sense gratification.
He always wants to remain with his family and in his house and to continue the process of sense gratification. There is no cessation of this. All these symptoms should be understood as characteristic of the mode of passion.
We're reading the text 13?
Yeah.
When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of Kuru, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested.
When there is no illumination, knowledge is absent. One in the mode of ignorance does not work by a regular principle. He wants to act whimsically for no purpose.
Even though he has the capacity to work, he makes no endeavor. This is called illusion.
Although consciousness is going on, life is inactive. These are symptoms of one in the mode of ignorance.
There's additional purport here, and we'll kind of dive into this even deeper. In 2 parts. It says, the pure-hearted spiritualist sees that the soul Oh, sorry. That's I went a little ahead of. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. By studying these 3 texts, we get an idea which modes of nature are affecting us. Often, different times of the day and various occurrences throughout the day place us under the control of one mode or another. The next 2 verses describe death in the modes of material nature. So this is a really, as we kind of talked about before, this is a very technical chapter for those who are yogis, jnanis, because the jnanis are motivated by intellectual jugglery of the mind. And so Krishna's explaining how, depending on what mode of nature you're in, how you're going to be affected by this particular mode at different times. And in verse, I believe, number 10, Krishna is explaining that these modes are kind of conflict. They're fighting. They're competing for supremacy, like a UFC fight, but for supremacy of which mode is going to win. And in the purport, in this additional purport, the author is saying that even during certain times of the day, there's a competition. And some, as we talked about a little earlier, if one wakes up early in the morning before the sun rises, that is considered mode of goodness. So therefore, it's easier to think. It's easier to, kind of prepare for things, can meditate. Ideally, one wants to meditate in the morning because it's less kind of disturbance. Yes, a lot less disturbance in that time in the morning. And then past 11 o'clock in the morning, that's when the mode of passion is very, very active. And when we're, going about work, it's always, we have all these deadlines we have to do, these appointments, these meetings, and so forth. Projects, we have to get to it. And then in the evening, after 9 o'clock, when the sun starts going down, then that's when the mode of ignorance becomes a little more prominent. I mean, if we look at the news, most burglaries don't happen during the daytime; they happen during the night. Except for the people who tried to rob the bank. This was last week in Tulsa. I don't know what. Anyway.
Nothing good happens after midnight. That's what my parents always said.
And that's typically, there's all these sayings, but it's true because these modes of nature are very productive during certain times. And depending on what we're doing at that time, we can either be utilizing the benefits of the mode of goodness or utilizing the side effects of the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion. And this is very easy to see in person, because when we go to the, whoever still goes, like goes out to drink with friends or goes to the bar, it's normally at nighttime. They look at you a little funny if you go during the daytime to drink, you know. So it's normally,
Unless it's happy hour.
unless it's happy hour, you get 1 hour to be happy, you know. and after that,
Happy only for an hour.
yeah, only for an hour. Yes, only for an hour. But you know, once everything kind of settles in the evening, you go hang out with friends, you drink, talk about politics, talk about, you know, spiritual talk doesn't happen during that time. It's normally, you know,
Talk about girls.
girls, boys, both of them, who knows? And this is the function of the mode of ignorance, is like you don't really want to think. You just want to let the senses kind of do what they do and enjoy. But typically it's at nighttime. And when we're waking up in the morning, that's normally the best time to meditate. How many people have woken up by chance in the morning and done some type of meditation? You know, it's like, it feels a little like, it's like time slows down a little bit. It's funny how that works, you know. And then the mode of passion is just like, there's all this anxiety for the future, always thinking about the future. Am I going to get this next client? Am I going to do well on this next project? Am I going to, you know, get more referrals? All these things. And this is how these different modes of nature are competing for our consciousness. Because our consciousness is ultimately the one that's affected. And that's why if we associate with people who are not so conscious individuals, we're not really thinking about the nature of the self. They're not really actively putting much energy into how can I advance my situation spiritually? How can I become a better person? If there is not this kind of thought or association who thinks like that, then the overwhelming modes that we're dealing with in that association is either passion or ignorance. In the verse it was saying that, I think at the bottom, yes, it says, although consciousness is going on, life is inactive. So what does that mean? That means that we have so much potential to do something in life, but I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit here. Now, mind you, if you had a long day, a lot of work, then yes, rest. But if you haven't done anything all day and you're just sitting there without any function, if you're not functioning, you're just wasting your time, then this is considered illusion, actually madness. Because you can't get your moments back. And this is the thing about those in the mode of goodness, they're thinking about how to best utilize time, because they know they can't get time back. So how do I utilize time in such a way in which I can not just benefit myself, but benefit society? And this is the overwhelming thought process. But a bhakta or a bhaktin is thinking, I have this human form of life. I should be able to help someone else also raise out of their, uplift their consciousness. Not saying that just because you practice bhakti, you're better than anybody else. It doesn't mean anything. However, by having this knowledge, that means that we should act for the benefit of society. by acting for the benefit of society, this is when we're actually real philanthropists. This is that work in which is done, which will help everyone. So a person that is practicing bhakti is thinking, I'm not just going to do what benefits me, I want to do what benefits everyone on a spiritual level. The mode of goodness person thinks, well, if I can feed many people, which is great, do that. But Krishna is explaining that these different modes are binding. You can be bound in the mode of ignorance, thinking I'm just going to sit around here and not do anything. Or I'm just going to work to make sure I have my family in order, make sure my bank balance is really nice. Or I'm just going to just open up different institutions to help others. But all these things are binding by nature. So Krishna is trying to explain, like, hey, there's a competition going on whether you know it or not. Sometimes in the Abrahamic tradition, there's this idea that, good and evil are battling. In the bhakti and the Vedic practice, it's understood that these modes are neutral. These are neutral modes. They are based off of where our mind is, where our desires are. So if our mind is, if we're not paying attention to what we're doing at every moment, or at least throughout the day, then we will be pulled in whichever mode is most predominant that day, or whatever association we have predominantly. Question. And you don't have to explain everything, but the friendships that you all have in this room, what percentage of the time do you all talk about uplifting things outside of money, jobs, or...
You're saying with this group of people, outside of being in this room,
Yeah.
how much do we talk about
Yeah,
those
like
things?
your association. How much of that communication or that conversation is outside, does not talk about politics, does not talk about money, does not talk about the next job, all these other things?
Well, when I'm hanging out with you and Jugal,
We're in this room.
100%. Like if I come to the office during office hours.
And then you're trying to leave.
What's that?
And then you're trying to leave. Where are you going?
Well, I feel guilty because I'm keeping you from your work.
Oh, that is my work.
Well, it's a great conversation.
I would say 80 to 90%.
Yeah,
Very little mundane conversation with anybody in this room.
pretty much.
And, especially with the men's group that Tony's kind of
Did you talk?
formulated over the last several weeks. That's just another night of the week that we get together and have those conversations about what's troubling us. And not just like a venting session, but constructive criticism, holding each other accountable, and offering advice through wisdom. So not speculative, but well, this is what I've done in that situation. So very much growth mindset and not just individual growth, but of the community.
I wouldn't consider that to be mundane, because that's a person that's worked personal development.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Himself. So yeah, I would consider that still to be part of your. I mean, it's just like sleeping. One has to take rest so they can properly serve, type of thing. So I would still consider that to be part of your devotional aspect.
Certainly.
Confirmed. But so if we look at our current associations, how much are actually feeding into the mode of goodness?
How many are keeping us on track?
How many are keeping us on track? And not just with work, because we have bosses for that, keep us on track at work. But how many are actually making sure that we're working on inside? Because sometimes we have friendships and hopefully I'm not making anyone feel bad, but sometimes we have friendships in which all we do is vent. but there's no amount of actual upliftment in that relationship. And if there's no uplifter in that relationship, then that relationship's either the mode of passion or the mode of ignorance. Because the mode of goodness is always trying to, how can I bring this person up?
I wouldn't say I experience any of that in my personal relationships. I very much value reciprocity and give and take with listening and receiving and giving and being able to like be there for each other and uplift each other and provide that comfort or outside perspective or just whatever that person is needing. And I think that's kind of the biggest like meaning of friendship is to be able to be there for one another in connection as well as help each other like fulfill what it is that we're needing in life.
That's beautiful, and this amount of level of vulnerability is rare. I think sometimes we find pockets where we can have that, but overall, it's missing. Were you gonna say something?
I had a kind of like trying to wrap my mind around this. Like when we first learned about the three modes in chapter 14, the way that I thought about it is like goodness is like you're satisfied with whatever you have. Passion is you're craving more stuff, and ignorance is you're just like whatever. And then that's more.
You put it very well, I think.
But like I was thinking about it in terms of like you're in the mode of goodness for months or years, but like that's where you live. But now, after today, I feel like goodness is more like focus, like you're doing focused work. And passion is more like craving. It's still craving, it's still like I'm never satisfied. And then ignorance is more like being lazy. And every minute of every day you have to make these decisions. It's not like you're there for, it's not like I graduate from ignorance to passion and from passion to goodness. Like it's more like every time I have the same decisions to make, and in every moment of every day I have to make those decisions. Do I choose to be lazy or do I choose to be focused? And sometimes it's okay to be lazy, like at night, after a long day of work, but it's not like I graduate from one to the other and I'm like, okay, good, I no longer have to like worry about being lazy. Like how, put that into perspective.
Yeah, if I can reconcile it, is that, and your idea is correct, the motive of goodness is satisfaction. You're satisfied in what you have. There's not this overwhelming longing to have something that wakes you up in the night. Oh, I need this. Motive goodness is inner peace. Whereas the motive passion, there's not really any peace. You're always the next goal, right? And then the motive ignorance, you're checked out. Because the modes are everywhere, in every facet of our life, how we eat can be in the modes. How we eat are in the modes. How we sleep are in the modes.
Even worship.
How we pray are in the modes. In chapter 18, Krishna explains that if one is practicing spirituality just for some type of gain, this is worship in the mode of passion. Or somebody is...
Which is still better than not at all, right?
Which is still better than not at all, yes. However, everything can be quantified by these three different ropes, these three different gunas. And sometimes people, we've seen some of the cults that, they drink this and you'll become intoxicated and they kill themselves. Sometimes the people unknowingly drink something that may take their life. But everything that we do is in the modes. How we communicate is in the three modes. Our relationships we develop with people are in the modes. So whatever our consciousness is, that's how in certain things, unless we raise them up, then they will always stay where they are.
So, going back to what Victoria said, like her relationship seemed to be in the mode of goodness because none of her friends are wanting something outside of this relationship. Like they're content in these relationships that they have built. So that would be a mode of goodness relationship. And then if I constantly think that I listen too much and other people talk too much, like people call me to vent, then maybe I'm in a mode of passion relationship because that relationship isn't exactly what I want it to be. Like, or like it may be a relationship where people don't call me at all, like that's the lazy relationship, and I'm like, oh, well, that's the mode of ignorance relationship. Did that?
So with Victoria, if I heard correctly, in your relationships you have with your friends, there's vulnerability and there is reciprocation. There is confidence, like you all can be there's confidentiality. And there's also the ability to, if someone has a problem, there's adequate help. Right? So when a relationship has these kind of this foundation, then this is in the mode of goodness. And this is an ideal relationship. And especially if there's a talk of spirituality that's somehow interwoven in that, that's even better. Because relationships, there's so many dynamics in relationships, but if there isn't the ability to, in the nectar of devotion, there's 6 loving exchanges to reveal one's heart and for one to reveal their heart in confidentiality. To make something for someone, like, something, whether food or something like that, and to receive someone's. And I believe the last 2
The actual.
is, I may have the order wrong, but
So to give a gift and receive a gift, to offer prashadam and receive prashadam, and then to reveal your heart and confidence to seek advice.
What
so
was the last one?
To seek advice. These are loving relationships or loving exchanges amongst devotees.
So you said to fill your heart with confidence?
Reveal.
To rebuild.
Oh, a confidence. Oh.
in confidence, yeah, in confidence.
Not incompetent, but in confidence.
I like that other one, fill your heart with confidence.
Well, hey, that's what happened.
Reveal the confidence already.
So Vedically, there are certain standards of communication, certain standards of etiquette in relationships. And we are just acting in life, we don't know how things work in different modes, we just act how we're raised. So Krishna's explaining, if these are your actions, you're either in this mode, that mode, or a mixture of modes. And most of us are in a mixture. All of us actually, we're all in mixtures.
Yeah, I was going to say that because it's not like pure mode of ignorance,
Yeah.
pure mode of passion, because all 3 flavors, it's like Neapolitan ice cream. Whenever you get a scoop, you might get more chocolate than strawberry and vanilla, or it might be more vanilla than strawberry and chocolate. But when you scoop, you will get a mixture of those 3.
So there's not this, you stay in one mode and you're always in that mode.
You don't graduate, in other words.
Now you can graduate consciousness from, if you're predominantly in a lower mode, you can go to the mode of ignorance, goodness, and ignorance, passion, and goodness. But there's always a competition for supremacy of which mode is more dominant. Because when we're watching TV, when we're associating with certain people, when we're doing certain things, then these things become more active around that time. And it is not being conscious of what we're doing at all times that leave us kind of vulnerable. And sometimes it's very difficult to always think, am I doing this in the mode of goodness? Am I doing this? Is this in the mode of passion? But generally, when you're around the right kind of association, then you gradually, you start doing things which are much better than before. Does that answer? Okay.
I wanted to ask a bit about the thing you had mentioned earlier, Max, about passion connections, or Raja's connections with, I guess, where you were saying, I was wondering if craving a connection might be part of the Raja's connection, where you were saying that, you know, everybody else listening to you and you're kind of absorbing it and then calling that a relationship. But is that born from the craving for connection, or is it born from some other craving?
What is the intention of that connection?
I don't know. It was just kind of
Because intentions are what matter.
yeah. Okay.
So if we're making friends just to have a roster of friends, that's mode of passion, because you're just collecting. You're like baseball cards, Pokemon cards. You know.
Pokemon, or you can just say baseball cards, is what you're saying, like someone who collects baseball cards or trophies. You know.
So it depends on what a person's intentions are, because the modes will act based. Our desires are kind of judged by their intentions.
That makes sense. And so, is there desire that is in the mode of goodness?
Yes. Desire. It's like, hey, I wanna hang with my people that are gonna uplift me,
Okay.
not just my ego, but uplift my consciousness.
Well, that's transcendental goodness.
Yes.
Goodness is, let me start a food bank and feed people who are hungry.
And nothing's wrong with that either,
Build a
you know.
hospital. What's that?
And nothing's wrong with that either. Like that's good, especially if you have the means to do so.
When I'm sick, I'll be very grateful to those people.
Yeah.
Or when I'm hungry, I'd be very grateful to go to the food bank. Yeah, that's good.
You know, you want to say?
I was just thinking how just all of us wanting to be here, or being greedy, or being in each other's association, that type of greed of wanting to associate with those who are wanting to discuss spiritual subject matters, that is a transcendental form of greed.
But it's still desire.
Oh, those desires are wanted.
Okay.
But the other desires, like you're talking about, someone that might be in the mode of ignorance, and they're greedy for doing some form of intoxicant, and now they're over there humped over a urine or a toilet vomit or whatever like that. Like that's not a good type of greed.
Happy hour.
That's what I was thinking, because happy hour, even though you're drinking intoxication, which is technically the mode of ignorance, but you're starting the mode of passion. And what are the qualities of the mode of passion? In the beginning, it tastes like nectar, but in the end, it's like poison. So in the beginning, you're, popping them back during happy hour, but at the end of the evening, like you said, you're bent over the toilet, retching.
Yeah.
And that's activities in the mode of passion.
And so Krishna's explaining this to Arjuna because he's talking to the jnanis, those who are intellectual. Because those who are not intellectual don't care about this information. This makes no difference in their life. So he's explaining, depending on where you are, during what time of the day, these modes are going to be are competing to get your attention. During this time of the day, who's getting your attention? And this is not, and just to be very clear, this is not to say, oh, because you do this, oh, you're in a mode of ignorance, oh, you're in a mode of passion. This is not that conversation. This is understanding. The Vedas are spiritual science, meaning you can test them out and see if they even work. Try to wake up early and do meditation. I kind of guarantee you it'll make you feel a little better, or you'll feel a little more connected in the morning. Or try to do a spiritual activity at 1 o'clock in the morning. Mind's not really so attentive, unless you're around those people at that time. Or when it gets dark, do you feel like, man, I feel like binge watching TV or something like that, or whatever. Like, there's so many ways to analyze these modes and how they can affect us throughout the day. We can just take a notepad and look at, okay, the modes of ignorance have these qualities. The modes of passion have these qualities. The modes of goodness have these qualities. Let me see, if I do this at this time of the day, how do I feel? What is my experience? And then we can see, okay, well, Krishna was wrong about that. I didn't feel because Krishna at no point in the Bhagavad Gita says just believe. Just take my word for it.
Prabhupada also insisted that we understand before we accept.
Because everything must be done with some knowledge, with some intelligence. So Krishna's saying, because I created the Vedas, this is how the universe functions. I would suggest you try it the way I'm mentioning it, but you do whatever you want. This is what he tells Arjuna at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. I've explained this whole science to you. Reincarnation, karma, time, good mode, different modes, action. But you do what you want to do at the end of the day. This is friendship. This is real friendship. And sometimes, this is me going on a little tangent, so excuse me. But real friends, they don't let you just, they don't force you, but they don't just not say something when they see you doing something that's not the best use of time.
I call that friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Yes.
In short.
Yes.
Do something that may not be beneficial to them.
And this is,
Or other people.
yeah. But we should, like, our standard of friendship should be, will this person tell me? Am I in the mode of goodness to hear it? Constructive criticism. Because anytime the word criticism is used, it's like, oh, hurts, stings, burns. But when we have friends that ideally have the ability to be constructive, then these are the friends that we ideally want. Because if you're around a whole bunch of yes people, where is the growth going to happen?
If there are real friends, then they have to have our best interests at heart.
Yes.
We have to know that. So therefore, when they do share something, when they do reveal their heart to us, like, hey, yeah, you may want to take a look at this, consider this, and so forth like that, then we can accept criticism. Constructive criticism.
Yeah.
But if we don't feel like if they are our real friends, then of course we wouldn't be able to accept much from them.
I've always had this.
Listen to them.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've always had this very. I've always appreciated this idea or the phrase, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I was always moved by that. Because sometimes you may interact with people that know a lot. But if you can't tell they care about you, then what is the use? What is the use of that relationship?
I think Terrific might have his hand up.
Oh,
I was letting you finish your point.
Oh.
That's all good. I was just going to touch on, it's the same vein, different little topic, but things that you've been mentioning that are mentioned in the Shastra regarding rules and regulations, when we look at them as rules and regulations, they can be arduous, right? When we look at it as you mentioned, it's the science of bhakti. This has been laid out. So the experiments have been done by the acharyas and by millions of devotees throughout all of time. So if instead of looking at these regulative principles as stipulations which I have to follow, and if I don't follow, I'm not worthy, and these other thought processes that I know at least I experience, choosing to look at it through the framework of this is the experiments have been done, and if I can simply do these things, if I can wake up before the sun comes up in this certain time window, I'm going to have more success with my morning program and my prayers and my meditation. If I eat these good foods and in the right portions, I'm going to feel better all of the time. If I am associating, if I'm associating with other people like we've been talking about this entire class that are helping me raise myself, then all of these different things, little piece by little piece, add up to the whole pie of finding myself in the mode of goodness more often than not. And so I can speak to, my own personal testimony, being in Bhakti for almost 6 years now, and I had a few close friends, and those are the kind of dynamics that we had, but I've noticed the falling away of acquaintances because I'm not collecting friends, right, to put on a roster of friends. It's truly value, and what do you bring to the table, and also what do I bring to the table? And just kind of organically, whether it's a romantic relationship, which you've all seen the ups and downs of that through the last year and a half for myself, or friendships that I really just catch myself, I don't really talk to these people anymore. And then the thought's I should reach out. And then the next thought's well, why? It's not that I don't care about them, but they're going to want to go sit at a bar and eat a cheeseburger and have a beer. I don't want any of those three things. So if we can, I have some friends still from the old days, if you will, but we do things like going to the river, going outside, doing things that don't involve alcohol, that don't involve talking about the girls and doing these other things. It's about keeping it, growth-minded. And that, I think, is just another byproduct of following the science of Bhakti Yoga and recognizing these things don't fill my cup anymore. So that longing, that desire for those connections, it's just not there anymore. Meaningless connections mean nothing. And so that's not just on a friend-to-friend level, that's in the familial level and kind of elevating the consciousness of the family, as well as any potential future relationships. Because, when you're talking about choosing life partners, you're talking about somebody who's going to be instrumental in your own growth or cessation of growth. And so in the past where I thought, I could be with a girl who was agnostic or atheistic, I recognize now that was a fault in my own way. That was me having that mode of passion, wanting to be in that material relationship because I wanted to check that box, but recognizing that the cup was never being filled. So what's a good check in a box if the cup's not being filled? And these are the realizations that I've had, when it comes to friendships and the importance of association. But I'm hanging out with you guys. I don't have the desire to go out and have a cigarette. I don't have the desire to go out and smoke pot or do these things. If I'm hanging out with the wrong crowd, that decision to do those things gets a lot easier because I've surrounded myself with people that aren't of the same mindset.
Albert Einstein once said that you cannot fix a problem with the same consciousness that created it. So it's like, if we're really trying to make advancement in our own personal life, mental, emotional life, spiritual life, then we have to develop a higher taste. Srila Prabhupada would often say if you want to get rid of something that is not really of use to you, you have to develop a higher taste. Because if there's no higher taste developing, then you're going to go back to those things that satisfy that lower taste. And it is very difficult to do. It's very difficult to do. Because this means that we have to be mindful. This means that we have to be conscious, and we have to be determined. I don't know if anybody saw that picture I put in the group chat.
I'm still not in the group chat.
You're still not in it?
I'm still not in it.
Oh, gosh.
Take a hint.
Okay. Just kidding.
I thought I added you.
No. But also you weren't here when I brought it up.
Oh, okay. So on my morning jog, I was running, and I saw this boulder, like this huge boulder, several hundred pounds. And between the boulder, there was a little root that had like turned a little branch that had split the boulder in two. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, how does this even happen? But I recognized that this small little root had the determination and the consistency to continue to grow and happened to bury its way into the boulder and split it in two over a period of time. And so I was thinking, if we can take where we are in life and use that same consistency, same determination, we can do unimaginable things. And with the right association, it makes those things much easier to do. But nature has a way of doing it on its own without any other variable except for, nature. So I was just thinking, I didn't know if anybody saw the picture in the chat, but I was moved. You saw, okay. But I was moved by it because I was like, this is what can happen if we strive to, even with a little endeavor. Any other thoughts or questions or realizations? No? Okay.
No, not right now.
Okay. But anyway, hopefully, please forgive me if I said anything that offended anybody or made anybody feel uncomfortable. That was definitely not my intention. I think, okay.
How do you feel about going to the extremes of, like what you were saying with the associations, and say if you're trying to develop a higher taste, right?
Yeah.
Going to the extremes of like cutting people off.
Yeah.
Like your mom, grandma, dad.
That's beautiful because it no longer, when we act erratically or act fanatically, even though that what we're doing could be considered mode of goodness, but actually it becomes mode of ignorance because we're not being conscious of our relationships, especially those, like when we talk about family. There have been many instances in which, someone joins a spiritual community. Oh, gotta get rid of that person. Now, mind you, some people may not be good, may not be a good influence, and it may be best to love someone at a distance. However, when it's done just erratically, then that leads to fanaticism, and that becomes mode of ignorance. A lot of times, and I think Dweji Tika mentioned back in the 70s and 80s, when the Hare Krishna movement was really big in the U.S., there were God brothers, God sisters that would not so consciously think about the relationships they severed. We got to do this and just immediately excommunicate. And at that time, it seemed like the best thing. But as they got older, it's like, wow, that wasn't really a good idea. This person actually really loved me.
Probably never approved.
And never approved. And sometimes...
He loved it when devotees brought their parents to see him.
And so the adverse effect by cutting people off or going too far, too fast, is that it becomes inauthentic and becomes artificial. And nothing sustains itself in an artificial kind of environment. The other point is that there's a term called spiritual bypass. that when the person is just joins the spiritual group and just goes 100% and doesn't work on themselves, like actually like their mental health, their physical health, then that becomes spiritual bypassing, because they've taken on a dress of a spiritualist. I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hare Krishna, I'm this, I'm that. But there's actually no growth internally. You're just doing these things to check off a box. So I think that's a beautiful question, because a lot of people sometimes, Trivikram, and I think you can attest to it, like going so deep so fast without kind of staggering,
Has to be
different
a
goals.
Transitory process. Transition.
Transition, yeah.
You can't go from A to B. There's like a lot in between A and B. And if you go straight, it can be overwhelming for everything in your life.
Like I mention this often because it's one of my dad's favorite sayings. It's because one of my favorite sayings is, don't rush, but don't drag your feet. And I think with that kind of concept in mind, it allows for steadiness. And this is one of the words, or one of the concepts you hear often is in the yoga realm, is steady. Slow and steady always wins the race. Like, if I can use Max in my relationship, he tells me, don't just rush to get these different things. Like, be practical about it. Be mindful about it. Take your time. And sometimes I'm in a business mindset. I have to do this now. I have to get this done. And I'm the one creating these goals. Like, it has to be done this day, where it doesn't really have to be done at that time. So, confirmed. So, in one's spiritual life, just continue. Just do the best you can each day. And try not to overdo it.
But don't underdo it either.
But don't underdo it.
Don't drag your feet.
Don't just,
But
exactly.
how would you know you are underdoing it or overdoing it? How would you recognize that thing?
Because
Well,
you
it
should,
could be different
yeah.
for each individual.
because by knowing you're balancing, by not going too fast and not going too slow,
That's why
you should, the enthusiasm should be there, or the desire to continue should be there.
how to keep that enthusiasm, like,
I think,
Sorry,
if I may,
Mm.
if you do it, pick a time like a reasonable time to do the thing. And then if you achieve the goal within that reasonable time, then you know that steady wins the race. If you're doing it for 3 times as long and it's not getting you the results, then maybe you need to change something. But at the same time, where are you in a rush to?
Can I add to that?
sometimes we
No.
lose motivation, I feel like, and sometimes we're just doing it just for the sake of it.
I struggle with this too.
So this is something I talk with my crew Dave about often, because I have his terminology is there's peaks and valleys, and there will always be peaks and valleys. So we're always going to have times we're going up the roller coaster, things are getting good, we're at the top, oh this is great. Things start going down, this isn't where I want to be. And so our spiritual life, our material life, all of these different things will have these ups and downs. And so sometimes, as was mentioned earlier in the class, sometimes we're doing the spiritual practice in the mode of passion. It's this understanding that even if we're in the mode of passion, it's better to be doing the practice than not. Because, like Christian Dave's father said, we don't want to go too fast, but we don't want to drag our feet. So if we're not instilling the discipline in ourselves slowly over time with grace, and it's all 3 of those things. It's slowly, over time, and with grace. So if we set in our mind, I'm going to do long hard, I'm going to wake up at 4:30 every morning. If we get up 3 mornings out of 7, but we got up 0 mornings the week before, that steps in the right direction. So this is where the grace comes in and the overtime comes in, right? We recognize we can't go from where we're at to being a monk in a monastery by tomorrow. but we can take little bitty incremental steps. And remember to give ourselves an appropriate amount of you know,
Grace.
not, yes, but I'm trying to think of the right word. We should be proud of ourselves when we start putting in any of those things, but it should be proportioned. So not from a place of ego, but when I wake up on the morning, which is pretty much every morning, but you know, when I do wake up, I thank myself and I give myself a little pat on the back. Like I woke up and did a hard thing to start my day. I woke up at 4:30. I finished all of my job as the sun was coming up. Those are the days that I do give myself a little bit of credit. Not in a way to boast. It's not that I'm better than anybody else. It's not that it's just that this is the thing I committed to doing, and I did it. And that's a nice way to start the day. In AA, when we talk about first getting sober, many sponsors' first assignments to their new sponsee will be like, hey, when you wake up in the morning, I just want you to make your bed. Send me a picture that you made your bed. It's about these small incremental changes that we do that pile on. If we can start piling on wins, spiritually or materially, before the sun even comes up, it's on track for the rest of the day. And then it's just staying on track, not trying to get on track. Well, I snoozed 4 times and I'm up 40 minutes later than I wanted to be. Well, I was going to have coffee and breakfast and I didn't. Now I'm stopping at the store. Now I'm spending money I wasn't going to spend to get a snack when I had food at home. Now, and everything compiles the wrong way. So we can get compound interest going towards the mode of goodness or away from that. And if we can just do a little thing each day and have grace for ourselves when we don't do that thing, this is how we find our non-ego-centered actual spiritual growth.
Thanks.
And another thing I was thinking about, especially Vineet. Vineet's like one of the things I know about Vineet. He's very consistent in his exercise. So in those moments where you don't feel like exercising, how do you continue?
I think it takes practice, like time, because I've been doing for more than a decade now, like consistently. It comes like over the time. Like same thing, like with spiritually, like doing mantras and japa. I do it like every day. Like I do my certain pujas since maybe like I was like 10. So even though sometimes I don't want to do it, but I do it because we kind of, in my head, it's like you have to do it no matter what. I don't know. Sometimes that's why I was kind of curious, like what to do. Like you should feel like doing it, like prayer, mantra, or japa. Like it shouldn't come like you're forcing yourself. You know.
Yeah.
That's the
why I
goal.
was kind of asking, like what could be the solution. But I think you said it's natural. Like yes, that's what you do that. I think.
Well, and we shouldn't, there also isn't like should or shouldn't feel a certain way. So when we meet Krishna on the days that we're not inclined, Krishna knows where we're at, right? So we're here in the 4th chapter where we talk about Krishna will meet us where we're at all times. And so some days we wake up on the wrong side of the bed and our morning prayers might not be super heartfelt. It might almost even be begrudgingly. I'm tired and I'd rather be in bed right now. But you're not. You're still doing your prayers. And that's something that particularly in this age of Kali is recognized. And, you know, I can't speak to where we gave highest credits and this and that, but I understand that Krishna knows my heart. And if he knows that I'm still making the sacrifice in this moment to do this thing that I don't even actually feel like doing, that's where we want to be. That's almost better than when we cultivated this feeling of like just pure bliss, right? Or we tell ourselves it's pure bliss. That's not always authentic. So it's almost more authentic sometimes when we crawl out of bed and don't want to do it, and we wash our face and brush our teeth, and we say our prayers, and we get through it, it's like, okay, it's done. And I don't know about you, but those days when I do finish it, it almost instantly brings that like lightness about me. It's like, okay, I did it. I had this big to do about this thing I don't want to do, but I did it, and I feel better now.
Yeah. I think in the last point, then we'll wrap up, is that when we are actually tasting like a relationship with divinity, then these kind of up and downs are progressively more up than down. Because like you're feeling that spiritual energy. And most of the time, if we're not feeling that spiritual energy, or it's not palatable, then it becomes, I can do it today, I can do it, I can wait a while. But like those, whether monk, priest, those people who are actually like really connected, not just because they can recite all these verses, all these prayers or whatever, but when they're actually tasting, that taste becomes so sweet, they don't want to stop. But this is a very advanced form of relationships. But we have to start somewhere. So in the meantime, for most people, we've been traveling throughout this universe multiple lifetimes. So we are conditioned by certain thought processes. And when we do something spiritual, it's like, oh, this is good. When is it over? It's five, yeah, ready to clock out. But when there's actual taste, you say, man, I can do this all day. I wish there was more time in the day. So this, yes?
I hope it's appropriate, but in regards to spiritual activities, or sometimes the other name is called sadhana. And so sometimes we may think, okay, maybe I'll do this, and it starts off that way, maybe I'll do a few minutes or a couple of hours, but what we don't often talk about, but the truth is that the sadhana is actually one sadhya, meaning this is actually the end goal. This is what we actually are trying to get to. It's just that in the beginning, we don't have momentum, so sometimes trying to get that boulder to move could be a little tough, whether it's waking up or doing certain things. But then once we get moving and we really start to have a deep appreciation for certain activities, we're like, wow, I used to do certain things that, let's say in the evening time, hanging out. I'll just give you a perfect example. When I was younger, I used to hang out with the street kids. That's all I had in my neighborhood. I grew up in the rough side of town, so east side was probably rough as well too, but so you just out there doing a whole bunch of crazy stupid stuff. But then there was one accident that took place. It involved a firecracker, blew up on the side of my face. It was just a nasty mess. And I was like, you know what, I'm not staying outside anymore. I'm staying inside. And then I started really diving deeper in my studies as a student. And I realized, I said, you know what, I'm actually liking this stuff. And on top of it, it's keeping me from the mode of ignorance, which is hanging out with the neighborhood, the riffraff. So I was like, I'm liking this. But I didn't really have that taste. But it took some time, and that taste starts to develop. And that's actually something that does happen, that one actually does develop a taste, because these activities that we're engaged in are actually true to the soul. These are the actual natural activities of the soul. When we talk about dharma, we have our temporary duties. If you're a parent, all parents have their dharma, their responsibility. When I say dharma, it's almost like saying a job description. As a parent, you have to do this and this and that. If you're a friend or brother or a sister or a student, whatever, we all have our responsibilities. But then those responsibilities that are true to us on the eternal level, as I like to say, on a molecular level, those activities are actually called sanatana dharma, or nitya dharma, or eternal activities, or jiva dharma, those activities from the soul. And so, in the beginning, again, it may not taste sweet, as you were pointing out a little earlier about things that are in the mode of ignorance may taste sweet, it seems, but then it's like poison at the end. But here, this may not taste so sweet in the beginning. It may taste a little bitter, but it becomes actually very sweet. And that's because an example that is given sometimes is a person who is afflicted with jaundice.
Person who what?
Afflicted with jaundice, if they were to taste rock candy or sugar, sugar doesn't taste sweet to them. But it's part of the cure, if I recall properly. And so it's only a matter of time that rock candy would taste sweet to a person who ends up getting cured of jaundice. Like that. So, again, it may not taste so sweet in the beginning, but this is actually really what we're wanting to do, is to be in those higher tranquil activities.
Sorry for going over, but this was very sweet. Again, like I said,